in English. Sorry, it's not my first language. And the second excuse is that I see a few people here that heard me yesterday, and I'm afraid that they will be boring to hear it again. I will try to change a lot of things, okay? That the people that were yesterday will not be too much tired with my explanation, description of the Jewish non-people. Now, as Bertel told you, I'm teaching history in the Tel Aviv University. Jewish history is not my field. It's a long time that I was working about the natives in France, for example, and also natives in Germany. In one day I decided to question the natives in Israel, I mean the Jewish in Israel. And this is the book, this is a product of my my questioning the Jewish present in the history. Now, I wrote the book after I got the full professorship, because I was sure that if I will write it before it, there were not any chance to become a full professor. Not only in Tel Aviv, I believe also in NYU it wasn't sure that I could be. It's not a joke. Now, I wrote the book after I understood that nobody can touch me really in academic point of view. Now, it wasn't my field. Then at the beginning, I didn't know exactly what I'm going to do. There were a few questions, a few things that bothered me a lot as a historian of other fields. I have to explain you that I'm not a historian of the Jewish people, because we have in the Tel Aviv University a special department of Jewish history. I belong to the department of general history that is occupying with all the goys, but not about the Jewish. I have not any right to direct somebody in thesis, to write scientific articles or book about Jewishness. Why? Because I don't belong to the department of Jewish history. By the way, the Department of Jewish History, a little department with 12 students, I think, this year. We have 120. This department, all of the professors there are Zionist professors. It's very natural. By the way, it's all the universities in Israel has two departments separately, completely separate. Okay? Then it's not my subject, it's not my field, it's not my right to write about Jewish history. I decided to write it because, you see, I thought that Jewish history is something very, very interesting. Very interesting. In the way people write about it, I didn't like. But I don't hide that I decided to write this book also because I am an Israeli citizen that living in Israel in the beginning of the 2000 years, in seeing around me a kind of, how we call it, images of the past. And I'm speaking now like as a citizen, images of the past that worried me a lot. For example, to explain it clearly, I believe that you know, more or less, at least a part of you, that you are not a direct descendant of the Anglo-Saxon. You know it? In France, for example, people know today, at the beginning of 2000 year, that they are not direct descendants of the Gauls. You see? But 100 years ago, most of the Americans believed that they are the direct descendants of the Anglo-Saxon that came here, you know, long time ago. Now, this is very interesting, between Israelis, 95% or even more are sure that they are the direct descendant of the people of the Bible. But it's not only the Israelis. I think that the Jew, most of the Jews in the world, at least in the Western world, are sure also that they are the direct descendant of the old Hebrew. Even in this room, I believe, there are people that more or less think that they are, you know, the children, not of God, but of the Bible, no? I started to write the book because I have questions around the concept like what is a people, what is a nation, what is nationalism, what is a nation state, and other things. By the way, the first chapter I'm dealing with this concept. Then if somebody is starting to read the book, you can jump on this chapter. It's the most abstract, most difficult. And I didn't succeed in this chapter really to be simple as the rest of the book. Okay? Don't be afraid. This chapter is difficult. Jump on it, and then it becomes much more narrative. You see, it will take you forward. Now, starting with a simple thing, with a concept like people. Yes? It's not a scientific term. But what we mean usually when we say American people. Most of you belong to the American people? Yes, no? No, you come from Israel. No.
New York is my country.
Okay. No, it's you know, it's very interesting. The people started to decompose in some way in the beginning of the new millennium. But you know, using the word American people, French people, Italian people, see? It's useful. What we are meaning by saying Italian people? We are speaking about a group of human beings that are speaking the same language, more or less, has the same way of life, more or less, are eating the same food, more or less, have the same music, more or less, etc., etc., etc. Practice a norm, culturally practice a norm, common to this society that we call Italian people. If it's true to use Italian people, French people, German people, American people, how can I use the word Jewish people? You understand me? Because, you see, if I have a cat and a dog, I cannot start to call the cat dog. You agree with me? Yes. Because if I would call the cat dog and the dog dog, I didn't know who to call. No, it's not so simple. You have to understand. Jewish people, it means what? They don't have a language common to all. They are not speaking the same language. You see, I'm from Jewish origin. I imagine that there are other people here from Jewish origin, not? A lot of you. Can I speak in Hebrew now? You know, I'm very good in Hebrew, really. At least, can I speak in Yiddish? Not at no. Okay, I have to speak your language. Okay, English. It was an option once when I was young. You see, I believe that we can arrive to it. Why Jewish people? Not a language, not a food. We are not eating the same food. You see. By the way, in Israel we are eating hummus. You know what is hummus? I went in London to a restaurant, an Israeli restaurant, and I see hummus falafel, but it's not really Jewish. We steal it from the Palestinians like we stole the land. You know it. Now, not food, not language, maybe music. Yes, but the Doors music is not a Jewish music. I like the Doors, the Beatles. Unfortunately, it's not Jewish, okay? For the moment. Now, what will we mean, Jewish people? If it's not a secular culture common to the Jew, it's difficult to speak in modern terms about a people. Don't forget that before the modernity, the word people was applied to a lot of things, quite differently than they use today. All the Middle Ages, the word people was applied to religious group, like the Christian people. You heard about it? God's people in England. Very common to speak about God's people. The Englishmen were the God's people, you know? Peuple de Dieu for the French. I mean, the word people design religious group. In the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, people has other connotation, but not the modern connotation. You understand me? Then why Jewish people? There is other reason why to use the word Jewish people. This deep belief that the Jewish came from the same origin. They came from where? From Palestine, no? 2,000 years ago, the Romans expelled the Jewish from Palestine. And they started to wander in the world, you know, create a diaspora, arriving to Moscow, making a U-turn, return to their land in Palestine, Israel. This is the, you know, the kind of way that I studied history from the beginning till the last year. 10 years ago, I believed that the Jew, me, as a Jew, I'm a descendant of these people that were exiled 2,000 years ago. Everybody in Israel believed it, and I think also here, people more or less thinking that the Jews were exiled 2,000 years ago, no? And it has more or less, not a pure race, but more or less they are from the same, you know, ethnos, okay? I started to write the book after thinking about concept from the beginning. I think that the Jewish have not exactly the same origin, and I didn't understand why I have to continue to use the word Jewish people. And I thought that Jewishness is a religion, first of all, a very important religion in the Western world. When I started to speak with my students about it, it wasn't so simple. But we are a Jewish people. How come? The first basic in the 19th century to create a Jewish people, the first basic was the Bible. I noticed that the first part of the 19th century, Jewish first historians in the modernity in the 19th century considered Jew as religious community. Only in the second round of the 19th century appeared the first historians to use Jewish people in a modern sense. It means the question when the Jewish people was invented, it's a long time ago, 140 years. It's a long time, no? 140 years that the Jewish people was invented. By the way, the French people, it was 200. The German people is 250. But it's not bad, 230, 240 years that the Jewish people exist as a concept. Now, in the modernity, to create nations, intellectuals invented to the past people. Understand? To invent a French nation, it was necessary, to create a French nation, it was necessary to invent a French people till the beginning of the time, till de Gaulle or till Clovis. For 100 years, little Frenchmen studied that they are the right descendant of the Gauls. Nos ancêtres les Gaulois was the first sentence in a lot of books, history books in the schools. Nos ancêtres les Gaulois, notre ancestor les Gaulois. Jews started to write the history of the Jew from the Bible. My first chapter, after the theoretical chapter, is dealing the way that these intellectuals of the national intellectuals of the second half of the 19th century took the Bible as a basic to tell the history of the Jew as a people. And it was a new thing to do. You have to know that the Bible, that is not a book, it's a library, was not read by Jew. Everybody believes that the Bible is the book of the Jews, no? More or less? The first testament, not the second one. But do you know the Jewish in their yeshivas, in their rabbinic schools, didn't study the Bible. They didn't read the Bible. Jewish didn't read the Bible. They have no the right to read the Bible. Who read the Bible before the modern times? It was a very, very important Jewish sect that the name was Karaite. You know what is Karaite? Karaite. I think that in English we're saying Karaite, no? Karaitis. Karaitis is a very important Jewish sect. I don't know if to call it Jewish sect, a monotheistic sect in Jerusalem, very, very strong. And they read the Bible as the first book of their identity. The second group that read the Bible before modernity was, where? Who? Huh? Protestant. They jumped on the Bible as the beginning of their religion, because they are the really children of Israel, you know, the Protestant. You know it. I believe that there are people here, really children of Israel, from Protestant origin, no? I don't see very clear, but I believe. I don't know how to define somebody that is a real Protestant. And even a Jew, I don't arrive to identify immediately. Now, the Protestant were the second group that read seriously the Bible, and the third one was the Zionists. In the second half of the 19th century, at least from the end of this century, Zionists started to read the book not as a theological book, but as a historical book. You see, all my education passed in Israel. When I was 7 years old, I studied the Bible in a secular school, not in a religious school. I studied the Bible as what? As a history. History of my people, the Jewish people. You can imagine it, from 7 years old till the degree of the high school in the end, in 18, everybody in Israel is studying every week, before the English language, before mathematics, before history. It is the Bible. By the way, in last years, they decided to start it in the first class, to be sure that people will know that they belong to the Jewish people. A month ago, I read that they thinking to put the Bible in the kindergarten. They don't know to read, but we can read before them who they are. You understand? It's very important. Especially in this world that national identity, national culture started to be decomposed. Then it's much more sure to read the Bible to children in the kindergarten. It's not a joke, by the way. They didn't decide yet if to do it in the kindergarten or not, but it's very near to happen. Now, the Bible became the basic of the history of the Jew. In the 90s, I mean more or less 20 years ago, Israeli archaeologist. This is a New York accent. I have an Israeli accent in English. Any archaeologist, okay? Israeli archaeologists, the good Zionists, started to discover that a lot of things in the Bible, most of the things in the Bible, are legend and has not a real historical basic. I will not come in too much, but because if I'm telling all the book, you will not buy it. By the way, you can wait to the paperback, no? Not to, okay. I'm used to buy always paperback. No, but I'm sorry that I said it. Anyway, Israeli diggers of the land of Israel discover that the exodus, the famous exodus of the Jew, exodus of the Jew, going out from Egypt, didn't happen. The exodus didn't happen. It's terrible, no? You know why it's terrible? Very difficult for everybody? There is Pesach. You know what is Pesach? In this holiday, very important Jewish holiday, you can imagine that Exodus didn't exist. Why to make this holiday in Pesach? Now, not only the Exodus, by the way, there is a lot of reasons that were proved the Exodus couldn't be. In my book, I come into details, but you have to understand The Exodus supposed to be the 13th cycle before Jesus Christ. Okay? 13. In that time, the Egyptian Empire exists also in Canaan. Then Moses took out the Jew from Egypt to bring back to Egypt, because Canaan was Egypt. You understand that? The David and Solomon kingdom didn't exist. It was a little teeny kingdom around Jerusalem of David, maybe. But it's true that it wasn't a kingdom unifying Israel and Judah together, great one, like it's described in the Bible, that it's telling in the Bible. Anyway, the Bible lost a lot of credibility because of our archaeology in Israel. I started the book trying to confront the all the new document about the Bible with the Zionism, the way that they constructed the Jewish national history. And I wanted to finish with it, to make a little book about it. And I remember the day that I started to become interested in another chapter, very important, of constructing the national consciousness or national memory of the Jew, and especially of the Israelis. It was the exile. I'm sure that a lot of people sitting here are sure the Jews were exiled from Palestine after the revolt of 70, after the destruction of the Second Temple. No? Jews were exiled from this. Everybody knows it in Israel, in New York, especially in New York. No? Sorry? You know, some people say that the exile happened in 70. The others say that the exile started in 135 in the revolt of Bar Kokhba. Now, I started to dig a little bit the subject. And I discovered, to make it simple, because I see that there are people here that are interested about the subject and knows about the subject. The Jewish didn't, the Romans didn't exile the Jewish from Judah. Now, you doubt about it. No? You think that the Jewish were exiled, no? Now, it's very interesting that I was looking for books, research books, that are speaking about the exile of the Jew. In the first century after Jesus Christ, I didn't find even one book. You can imagine it? One of the most important events in the Jewish history didn't happen. The Romans didn't expel Jew from Judah. How come? How come? Not in 70, not in 135. No, I don't ask you. I'm happy that you know something about it. Then most Jews were dead, but not exiled. Okay. Most Jews were dead, but not exiled. Then exile didn't happen. They died. Sorry.
Can you die in exile?
Sorry?
Can you die in exile?
Let him continue.
Now, then I repeat, no exile, even one book, is not speaking about the exile of the Jew from Judah. Now, in the population, in the collective memory, even on our money in the pocket, it's written that we were exiled. We, the Jews, were exiled from Judah. You know, we have the 50 shekels. It's not $50, it's $10, I think, no? More or less. Our $10, there is the inscription of Agnon saying that we were exiled from Jerusalem, from Judah, by the Roman, by Titus. And everybody in Israel is sure that we were exiled from Judah. In Rome, there is a gate. that you see there the menorah, you know, the menorah, with people holding the menorah. When I was a child, in my textbook, it was written, in this gate in Rome, you see Jewish holding the menorah going out to the exile. 3 months ago, our Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, went to Rome to meet his friend Berlusconi, a good friend, by the way. After meeting Berlusconi and all the girlfriends and all this, he came to the gate. No, it's not a joke. He came to the gate. He took a photo with the gate like this, and it was written in the journals that he's standing near the gate that showed that the Jewish people were exiled from Israel, from the land. Now, one of the things that I didn't notice when I was a child, that the guys that holding the menorah don't have beards. And they have a very short robes. You know, like here, it was very, very fashioned in the Roman soldiers. Very nice robes and without beard. The Jewish has a beard, even in that time. The Romans didn't have a beard. I am sure that Bibi Netanyahu in the photo didn't think about it. That the photo is about Roman soldiers taking the thing that they robbed from the temple and going it to Rome. Jewish were not expelled. A lot of them were killed. There is not numbers, but we know that most of the historians of the antiquity, exaggerate with numbers. I try to show it. I will not come into the problem. You can put away 1 0 in all numbers of the all the historians of the old time. 1 0. No, mister, not Shoah after the revolt. You know why? Because 65 years after the revolt of Bar Kokhba, Judah became the place, the basic of one of the achievements, the most important achievements of the Jewish tradition, of Jewish, ideologically, a Jewish religion. I'm speaking about the Mishnah. You heard about the Mishnah? A part of you, Mishnah. Before the Talmud, Mishnah, Mishnah, not Mishnah. The Mishnah. It was written 200 years. 65 years after the Bar Kokhba, one of the most achievements of Jewishness was produced in Judah. Okay? And there is a lot of material today to show that even if the revolt was very, very difficult of Bar Kokhba, this fanatical revolt of Bar Kokhba, very quickly, in one generation, the country became flourished even before. That if the Jews didn't exile, what happened? 2 questions were put before me. What happened with the population plus? What happened with the Jew? Because they were not exiled, first of all. And how come there are so many Jews in the world? You understand me? Now, what happened with
Good evening. Good evening, Sister ERELU. Good evening, Deborah.
Good evening.
Well, welcome and thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're about to share with us.
It's a pleasure.
I'm very much looking forward to it. We are recording it for those who are unable to be here. I wanted to ask your permission to give it another 10 minutes to see if a few more log on before we start. And if that would be okay, I would continue playing the video until 10, maybe quarter past at the latest, and then we kick off from there. If that allows sufficient time for you. If not, we can always start now.
Well, I think the most important thing is for you to have a number of people anyway, not saying a huge number. I think that would be what your goal should be. Hopefully you will have that. And I think my appeal will be, as long as 8 p.m. is the deadline for this session, I'll be very grateful.
Understood. Thank you. So I will
Thank you.
give it until 15:15,
Okay,
and then we will reconvene with whomever is here at the time.
okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
Thank you.
The Jewish in Judah, in Palestina, because we have to say Palestina after the Bar Kokhba revolt. What happened with the Jewish in Palestina after the revolt? What happened with the Jewish during all these years? How come that the Jewish disappeared from Palestine? You have an idea? I have. I started to look, and I found in the writings of the first Zionists the answer. You don't know, I imagine, a lot about the first Zionists. For example, Israel Belkind. He's the first guy, before Herzl, that has a Zionist arrived to Palestine. Israel Belkind. You don't know the name. But you know David Ben-Gurion? No? The young don't know who is David Ben-Gurion? David Ben-Gurion. David Ben-Gurion. No, in New York it's David Ben-Gurion. No? You know him. David Ben-Gurion, with his friend Yitzhak Ben-Tzvi, wrote a book, a very important book about Palestine in 1919. By the way, it's very astonishing that they wrote it here in New York. They were exiled, by the way, by the Turk. And they wrote a fantastic book about Eretz Israel, the land of Israel. They are the first one that started to use in modernity the word Eretz Israel. Because all the Zionists call it Palestina, you know. In this book, they gave the answer that I was looking for. They knew, and they write, it's a mistake to think that the Jews were exiled. The Jews stay in place like all the peasants in the world. And the peasant in Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, are the direct descendant of the old Jew. If you don't believe me, buy the book. I quote Ben-Gurion, I quote Ben-Tzvi, I quote Belkin to show at least till 1929 the most important Zionists believe that the Arabs there, the natives, are the real descendants of the old Jew. Astonishing, no? Bizarre, it's saying here in French. You see, they try to make the picture of the Israeli people differently than later. They were a minority as settlers, and they wanted to recuperate the Palestinians as a part of the Jewish people. They spoke, and they write about the Arabs in Palestine as a part of their flesh and blood. I mean, they had a concept that we need a same origin to become a people, but they consider the Arabs in Palestine as a part of their flesh and blood, till the first Arab revolt in 1929. Suddenly they discovered that the natives don't want to be Jew. There was a problem. By the way, I'm thinking that it's pity. Huh? If they accepted to be a Jew, it was differently now. Huh? We could have as Prime Minister Azmi Bishara, maybe, I don't know. Or Ismail Haniyeh, the Prime Minister of Israel, who knows? Anyway, when I tried to expose this idea before a lot of Arabs, Palestinians, they didn't like the idea that they are the descendant, direct descendant of the Jew. Especially the Hamasnik. Huh? It's not a joke, by the way. They didn't accept it so well. Anyway, I think that Ben-Gurion was right. It's one of the points that I accept his ideas. I mean, he exaggerated a little bit because he wasn't a serious historian. I don't think that the Palestinians are the direct descendant of the old Jew. You know why? Because every conqueror passed there in this area and left his seeds in the place. They are mixed like most of the peoples in the world. I try to convince them that they will not start with the mythology, national mythology, that they are the real Jew. It will make a lot of problems, you see, diplomatically. And yeah, it's fantastic. You can imagine to write a script about this? A family of Hamas discovered by the DNA, for example, that they are the old Jew. Now, the second question was, if the Jewish were not expelled. By the way, I think that the Palestinians are not the direct descendant of the old Hebrew, but I think that the chance that the Palestinian in Hebron will be a descendant of the old Jew, it's 1,000 times more than me. I mean, I think that the chance that he is a descendant of Palestinians is much more than most of us here. Jewish and not Jewish. Now, what happened? In the beginning of the 7th century, the Arabs arrived to Palestine. Jewish and Palestine exist till this time as a majority, more or less. A lot of them become Christian, but not all the population. It was a resistance, a very strong resistance to become Christian. You know why? Because a lot of people has a problem with the Son of God. You know, it's a kind of coupure. You know, Christianity and Jewishness are very far from the theological point of view. It was very difficult to admit that the grace was descendant to the land, to the earth. You understand me? It was very difficult for Jews to become Christians. But with the Islam, coming the Islam, it was a happiness. This is the reason, for example, that I cannot support now, when I'm living in Paris a little bit, to hear notre civilisation judo-chrétien. You know, today everybody is speaking in Europe, we are Judo-Christians. You hear them? Very popular. I don't understand. No, it's a very nice formula, but I read that they didn't use it, the French one, in the 40s. It was nice, 1940, I mean, to become a Judeo-Christian before the Germans. Anyway, to say Judo-Islamic is much more logic, you understand? A prophet came from the desert and said that he is the continuation of the other prophet. He is not the son of the God. They opened the Jerusalem, the holy city of the Jewish, before the Jew. You understand? The first time that the Jew could come into the holy city was with the Islam conquest. Not only this. You see, the first step of the conquest of the Islam, every guy that was converted to Islam was free of taxes. You heard about it?
Was what?
Was free of taxes. Taxes.
Oh, free of
He didn't have to pay taxes if he was converted to Islam. You can imagine it? They are coming. Tomorrow they will come to New York. They propose every person, every guy that was except to be converted to Islam will be free of taxes. How many New Yorkers will accept the Islam? Thinking 76. People become Islamic without knowing that they are changing religion. I'm speaking about peasant. In this way, they become, this peasant, after 1,000 years, the Palestinian, more or less. Now, what happened with the rest of the world. And this is important. Now, everybody of us
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I will stop there. That video was just watching to allow some time for a few more people to log on. And welcome, Sister ERELU. I will hand over to you and let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. Yannick, is the name correct?
That's very correct, yes. It is.
Excellent. Let me first do what is necessary. Akoda mojuba oloni, Asheda mojuba oloni, Ikumere aye mojuba oloni. Ẹ̀yin bàbá ńlá mi àti ìyá ńlá mi, mo pè é ní wàrà ṣẹ̀ṣà, mo ní kẹ́ ẹ wá jẹ mi. Wọ́n wá ní ta ló ń pè é, mo lé mi àjíún. Ọmọ eégún lọ́jọ́ ọmọ àgbà ọ̀jẹ̀ tí mi gbó kìjikìji. Ìbà ló ní bàájú, ìbà. I have just paid homage to my own ancestors and of course yours. Yannick, thank you very much for inviting me. But I want to acknowledge the source via which I made contact with you, and that is Sister Marcia, whom I've had the most cherished privilege of knowing for quite some time. I thank her very much because she was the one who got me into this circle, and I found it extremely fascinating. So why are we here today? I think what you've invited me to come and do. You've also kindly given me quite a number of questions, which I would say is extremely helpful. Let me tell you who I am again. I am known as ERELU Tunwase. It's a royal title. ERELU is a spiritual title. It has a history, it has a story, and anyone with that title also has a number of roles in the area today known as Yoruba land. I'll come back to that. Apart from that, Tunwase itself belongs to a family that are rulers. And I use the word rulers, I mean Oba. Some would say that is kingship, and that is the Ijebu land. And there's also a history about that. One family where 3 females were once upon a time rulers of a particular area. I have a legal, I have a social, I have a health background. And I also want to add with quite a lot of experience in British political circle, as well as that of Nigeria. Another bit you may need to know about me, as it is relevant to the topic, is that I'm a direct biological descendant, and I do say biological, of the person everybody calls Shango. Shango is not his real name. Shango is a nickname. So I think that's all I will want to advance about myself, other than to say, I'm not here to teach, I'm here to share information. Yes, I do teach, I'm a medium, and I do quite a number of other things. But today, I'm here to share information. And let me say, I do not think in English language, I think in Yoruba. Yoruba ni mo ma fi ronu. I don't think in English language. So if I'm slow in using the language you're accustomed to, please forgive me in advance. I will provide you with information from firsthand of being somebody born and bred and well connected with all that needs to be in Yoruba land. You can't find what is really Yoruba, I'm afraid, on the internet. Because we say something in the place called Yoruba land, Angbenu Awo Shawo, which means as you want to find us, we close the door on you. As you want to find us, we close the door on you. And we have a right to close the door on you. For our world cannot be made wide open to anybody, including those who claim to be of the same ancestry. Yoruba, Orthodox Yoruba culture. Yoruba itself is a word that is bandied around quite a bit. Do we really have those called Yorubas? To an extent, no. That's kind of a word that's emerged over a period of time in our life. We are people of Ife. That's who we are. The people that are called Yoruba today, we are Ife people. Ife is not love. Ife means land that expands, and it has expanded. And that is why you see that in many parts of the world, you'll find people that are called Yorubas. And Yoruba is not just about, it's not about biological link either. We also have a belief system, a very powerful spiritual system that we don't need to actually try to convert anybody. They are drawn to us. So we have a number of people who are just by what they call religion Yoruba, but they are not part of us. So there's no problem about that. But the fact remains that they are not biologically connected. They are only spiritually connected. It may be through belief in Orisha. It may be through belief in Ifa. It may be through belief in what our ancestors, my ancestors, believe in. So if Odua people is who we are. Today we are talking about sovereignty. I would say if Odua people, we are ruler with rules. We are rulers. We rule. We are rulers. And we rule with rules. And that doesn't mean the kind of white man's rules that you're accustomed to. We have explicit rules. We have strict rules. We are people with secrets. We have entitlement to hold onto our secrets. We also have confidentiality. So secrets, confidentiality, part of our rules. We rule the world with that. When I say world, please, I don't mean the whole world, our own world. One thing about us is we must be in charge of our own world, who we are. The history of the Yoruba people dates back to Shango and Oronyo. Shango was a grandson of our progenitor. Oh, you are out there, that's the name of our progenitor. Anybody who claims to be a Yoruba biologically today will be a descendant of Oduduwa. Now, he had this extraordinary descendant called Oronyo, very powerful individual who incidentally established two separate groups of people. The link between those that are called Ife or Yoruba is to Benin. And I mean the Benin where we all talk about Benin bronze, Ilu Benin. Now, and to the right hand, you have Oyo Ile, where we are today in Oyo is not where Oromiyo was actually spiritually directed. That's another thing. We don't do things off the cuff, for want of a better word. We have the rule of, I wouldn't say practice, rule. It's the rule of don't do anything without consulting the world of the unseen. It's a rule. It's not a practice. That's one important thing about orthodoxy. It is a rule. You must do that. Because if you don't do that, you will get the rest of us into a mess. So it's a rule. You consult. We then prepare to put into action whatever the outcome of the consultation is. So we have other rules as well, other rules to do with the beginning of the life of every one of us, those of us who are Ife people. So the rule was you don't marry foreigner. You don't marry a foreigner. You preserve our race. Don't marry foreigners. So our marriages were arranged. And you'll be very surprised to know that in the orthodoxy, even before a child is born, I want you to separate sex from marriage. We are not sex maniacs. I'm sorry to use that word. It's the least important in the orthodox world of Ife people, the least important. Whereas today it's different. So I want to make it clear to you that family, extended family life. I was born in a compound, and there are many wives in the compound. I was conceived in that compound. Means some call it akodi in Ife, some call it agboile. So we're extended family, more than one wife, uncles, relatives of the head of the household. The man must be a head of the household. Orthodox. Not a man who depends on a woman to let him know what he must do with his brain. Not orthodox. A man must stand up on his own feet and be able to relate to other men and consult and arrange what needs to be done. A man of the household is a father figure, and our young boys, if I could use that, they are brought up to understand that. In the family setting, the bedrooms are apart. We didn't have a man and a woman wrapped around each other's legs. That's part of orthodoxy. Not that the word, when they use the word, this love permits me to go into a drifa. There's nothing in the Odufa. I need to emphasize that revelation to somebody called Oromila, the only equivalent of a prophet that was sent to us Ife people. He could hear, he could see, he also had the capacity to document the messages he heard, and he decoded that and is able to leave us with a legacy. And that legacy is the one that people who are known as Babalawos today follow, if our priests. So in terms of religion, we had nothing called a religion because we had a traditional way of relating to Olodumare. We didn't convert anybody. We didn't preach God. We didn't preach Oromila. We didn't preach Orisha. We didn't preach anything. It was just natural, just as the day will break when it's meant to break. The dusk will arrive when it's meant to do so. We were people of nature. We were just people of nature. We didn't have anything that you can say routinely. Religion is the way we weren't people, unlike today, who would be saying they are praying to some Olodumare somewhere. No, character was it for us. Character was taught to us as a messenger that you must understand. If you send it, a message, but the message you send is what you will get in return. If it is good, it's going to be good. If it is bad, it's going to be bad. So let me go back, reminding you, orthodoxy means to us rulers and rules. Wherever we were, we will rule. The females too were rulers in their own circles. We had Yaile, the most senior wife. We had Yagba, that is what the people you may call elder. And Agba also has meaning. This, when you talk about a woman is an elder, that woman is not the one providing sexual services to any man. Any woman who is still doing that doesn't qualify. Orthodoxy. The woman is free from anything that one will consider in breach of the rules, and it's because the female concerned Agba must be available to take on certain roles within our community, within our society. I want to go on to say, apart from that, orthodoxy means you are clear of your identity. You have Yoruba, what is called Yoruba name. We don't just go and pick names in any exercise book. No, no. Before you are born, through consultation, it will be very clear the sort of child you're likely to be. When you're born, the consultation will be done. And when your name is given, it's given with the circumstances surrounding your birth, and it's become historical. So when you say, if I say I am a Jew, I know what a Jew means. It's not a name that every Dick and Harry has. It has a link with the time that I was born. So that's very important, that our identity is linked with the history of who we are. So you don't just go and pick up or open the internet and say, oh, beautiful name, this is Jumoke. We don't do that. That's not orthodox. So the rules are, you must look at what is happening at that point in time. In terms of, I'm still on ruler and rules. So in terms of rule and rulers, the rules at that point in time, and it is still so orthodox, you don't work for anybody. You don't work for anybody. You go and work for some government, you're a slave. You are a slave. You don't go and work for anybody. Anybody working for someone else is a slave. We would have, there were farmers, there were hunters, we had weavers, the cloths, and so on and so forth. You had to be self-employed. Those who come and clean the house and so on, they are slaves. They're not even maids. That's orthodoxy, ruler and rules. So, Dua, Hishe Wafa. That means those of us from the ancestry of Oduduwa, we cannot be Wafa. Now, that's being that is breach of our rules. Ajay, at that point in time, we knew Ajay means, Ajay is not strictly money, it includes wealth as well. And there are rules that governs it, that those of Orthodox are well aware of. I want to make sure that some of the questions that you gave me, that I take them in at the same time as I'm talking. You ask me, why is it important to preserve it? If we don't preserve our role as ruler and with the rules, we are finished. We are finished. We become somebody else. We cease to be who we are meant to be. That is very important. We must hold on to our role as ruler with rules. And I do mean making sure that everything we do, there are clear rules and guidelines to adhere to, not to start deviating from. I don't need to tell you that deviation has caused a lot of challenges for us. In what ways has the culture changed? Well, the first thing is that family is very important to us. Family, very, very important to us. And its extended family is not one man, one wife. No, it's not. It's one man and a number of those he chooses to assign the status of the wife to. That choice is the orthodoxy. The man must have a choice to decide, I don't want to. Not for some woman to be, forgive my using this one, to believe that it is her right, that a man must only have herself. No. Now, if you look at yourself, every part of your body is dual in nature. Even your nostrils too. That's natural. A man must have an alternative. A man must not have exclusivity, exclusive relationship. It's a female. That it in itself has unfortunately destroyed a lot of those you will call Yoruba men today, and they are crying like mad. Yes, they are crying like mad. They can't move, they can't see, they can't get up. That family, very important. That's change. It's change. Why has it changed? Because again, we've intermarried. You know, they marry another tribe who is clueless. They've intermarried left, right, and center. They've moved out. They've become slaves, working in London, working wherever. They are Yoruba. They are working for people because they are using their time to serve. You serve someone else, you're a slave. So they have become, we have become massively slaves. Now, the other question you asked me, so there's a change in that way, in terms of our identity. It's changed. A lot of our people are bearing Islamic names, Arab names, Hausa name. They see that as more. Or they are picking some names in some Abrahamic document. There's no history of us having any links with any of the Abrahamic religion. How can Yoruba people and entities within and outside Africa? We don't understand anything called Africa. Our people were never Africa. We only knew Ife or Dua. We don't know anything called Africa. There is no equivalent in our vocabulary. We have the word Adulawo, but there's nothing called Africa. So as far as that is concerned, it's not ours. Wherever it's come from, somebody will tell us one day, but it doesn't belong to us. Again, it's seen very much as something that the white man has created. Now, what would you like those participating or who may watch after take away? Well, personally, again, this is orthodoxy. If information is given to you, you have the liberty. There are three things we are guided by as rules. Three things. Three things. Imo, that's knowledge. Oye, that is wisdom. Ogbon, that is understanding. Imo, ogbon, oye. So those three, when I hear anyone give me information, spiritually, I take away from it what would be useful to me. So I simply hope that the little I've been able to share so far would enable those who had other ideas about who we are to understand one thing: Yoruba really doesn't exist in Ifa, is actually created. Now, who are the Yorubas? As I said, many. They don't belong to us biologically. They've adopted our what they call religion. They've adopted Orisha. They've adopted Ifa. So they say they are Yoruba. It's okay. Now, again, I repeat that in terms of our ways of life, if there are women who have found themselves in the lives of our men, please stop troubling their lives. Yes, let them get on with being men. Just let them get on with being men. If they want more than one woman, we don't want them involved in promiscuity, as they always say. They have a right to more than that. Is our biological right. That is our rules ideology. They have a right to more than one woman. If the woman didn't tell you before, well, unfortunately, you also a right to believe that you may have been deceived. But many women, over above the average, will tell you that a Yoruba man to speak with one woman and not be accused of this flippant word cheating. Cheating what? Cheating what? So is there right? Is there right to have more than one woman? Variety is it. That is what makes them man. As far as we are concerned, they must be ruler of the emotion of whoever they are dealing with. They must not let the emotion of somebody else rule them. Now, I think finally I want to say here and now that as I emphasized, we people of Ife, we are biologically rulers with rules. And our Oriki, some call it praise poetry, says that. My own says, Omo woyira koma ba reru teru abilala lenu. It says my ancestors have been buying and selling slaves for a long time before the white man came. Woyira, look at it before you buy. We've been trading in slaves. We've been selling slaves. Yoruba, I don't know about Igbo. We have been selling slaves. Otherwise, it won't be in my Oriki. Omo woyira koma ba reru teru abilala lenu. Look at the slaves properly. Buy nothing but the best slaves. So that's been there. It didn't come after the white man did whatever did happen. And has it stopped? We've always been involved in slavery. I'm sure you are well aware of the ongoing, unfortunately, ongoing what you call human trafficking. Human trafficking. Today, I was actually trying to rescue 9 females who've just been trafficked to Mali. They were sold. They were sold. Somebody who was offering to help them took them and sold them to some woman. And what were they supposed to be doing? They would be paying off the money and making profit. That is today. I want to stop there for now and allow people to be able to ask as many questions as they may wish. Thank you very much indeed, Yannick. I'll rest my case here for now.
Thank you, Sister ERELU. There's so much that you have said there that from beginning to the end, when you stop speaking, so much comes to my mind. But before I throw my 1,000,001 questions at you or thoughts, I just wanted to find out if anybody else had any thoughts, comments, or feedback.
Not at all, Yannick. Go on with your questions.
I guess the first thing you said, I just wanted to explore it a little bit further with regards to we closed the door on you. I can't remember the exact.
Yes.
Okay, can you expand on that? Can you talk a little bit more about that and what it means?
The word awo, some people will translate into English and say it means cult or cultism. Awo to us means wisdom. We have our own awo. We have our own pretty much arenas where certain secrets are kept confidential, and we won't let the door through for those who we do not believe or convinced are meant to have access to that information. It's always closed. And I do mean it. I don't talk theory. If I'm not, anything you hear me talk about here is because I'm part and parcel of it. Even in London, I think we have a similar setup. This setup, I think we have 11 houses now in London, and I've seen people who are not really within our biological framework who've gone in and they don't understand what is going on because they ain't gonna give them any information. By the way, the first one in London, we had 99.9% pure. I would just describe them with their skin. They were pure British who were born in Nigeria and they returned and they brought it to UK. And I recall when I became aware of it, going in to make sure certain things are done. And most of them moved out, and the natives, for the word, we took over. So I mean that we won't give that information. It's our survival information. We won't give it.
Okay. Moving on from that one, but thank you for responding. Sounds very interesting to me anyway. In terms of secrets and confidentiality that you talked about, what I guess, let me come back to that. I haven't figured out exactly what I want to ask you about that, but there's a question in there that I haven't yet arrived at. But let me expand on, I guess, what you talked about with regards to marriage,
Yes.
some of the ceremonies involved in marriage and how marriage takes place before, I guess, you're even born in the real traditional Orthodox practice. How does that happen? How is it decided?
But as I said, again, I will say it and compare what is happening now.
Mm-hmm.
Before, I will give you 3 examples. One is that there are 2 families who know each other. They have relationship, historic relationship, and their children can actually be betrothed to each other. The grandchildren can be betrothed to each other. That means already spoken for before that child is born. When the child is born, there are spiritual investigations that will take place. If for whatever reason, there's a reason for that not to continue, it won't. Let me say, important feature, the arrangement for a young person, a female, to marry a young man, the choice does not belong to the 2. Orthodoxy, not yours. What do you know that you want to choose somebody? And the issue of sex before marriage is not on. And of course, in some parts, the dowry, as they say it, is not because the female is being sold. The dowry includes exchange of gifts, which I think some of you must have seen happening in some halls in London. That is charade, because they turn into a Jesus Christ affair. And it doesn't involve hiring somebody called Alaga Joko, Alaga Dide. It's a family affair. And it's not, the real union takes place between biological relations of the 2 individuals that will be joined together. And in fact, it was not unusual, and it's still not unusual because it still happens. The female won't be there, the male won't be there, and the 2 families will actually enter into that marriage. And the 2, wherever they are in the world, they're married. Once the 2 families sit together and they exchange gifts and they agree, that's it, it's done. Now, we never were involved in anything called court marriage. What's court marriage? We were never involved. It's a private matter. It's got nothing to do with white man's rules or laws. We have our own customary laws, but the customary laws were administered in those days by the appropriate people within the regulations as put in place by the rulers. And the rulers are usually the heads. They're heads the rules are there. And I mean, hardly would you find certainly in orthodoxy, once it's done, you'll find that it's not about I have fallen in love with you. Because again, nowadays, it's quite clear some of the practices that our females get into, they claim they love someone and they are taking their names to the pastor and fasting so that the man doesn't get a second wife. They are running around like maniacs, believing that the man is their property. It's bad preparation. A female who is running around trying to prevent a man from taking a second woman, honestly, he needs help. So yes, the union is between the families. It's not between the two individuals. Two families becomes one. So if there are issues in terms of challenges, in fact, the mother-in-laws have roles to play. So that in itself is ruled by the rules of our race, which is you're not getting into a relationship because you want to provide sex. You're not getting into a relationship because you want to produce children. You're not getting into a relationship because you need somebody's security. No, you're getting into a relationship because it is important for whether you have a child or you don't have a child. You don't have a child, another one will have a child. And we say, no, but so that is the way the society organized and still organizes. In some setting, it's happening, although nowadays you'll hear of a Yoruba or quasi female of Nigeria, all of a sudden they're having twins in the United States when it is IVF. They're having triplets in the United States when it's IVF. IVF is getting more readily available nowadays. I hope I've answered that question.
You have, and it raised more. Well, quite a lot. Yes, yes, definitely.
I would like to ask some questions.
Please feel free.
Okay, maybe after. Okay, can I go ahead?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Sister ERELU, I might be contrary to your belief because
that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine if you are contrary. It's not a belief system, it's rules and rulers.
Okay, I might be contrary to your rules.
Yes, okay,
because,
go ahead.
My last name here, I'm not a Yoruba, but I'm married to a Yoruba man. And
even before you spoke, spiritually, I picked you up quick. Before you spoke, I picked you up before you spoke.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you don't believe in that anyway, but
can I stop you there? There we go. I mean, please, I've lived a prophet. Let me make it clear. It's not a matter of I don't believe. It is not our way. It is not our way.
It is neither our way too. You know, the Igbos are so preserved.
Anyway. Thank you, my dear.
It's not our way anyway. There are some of the things you mentioned that is our way. We don't marry unless we ask questions about where we are going. We send CIDs to find out about who we are marrying.
Thank you.
One of the things that is important, I'm a very traditionalist, just like you.
Excellent.
So people wonder why I'm even married to Yoruba. But I find there is a force, there is a big force that is stronger than anything, and it's love. When that force moves, you can't even control it because I'm Igbo to the core. Probably Yoruba to the core as well.
Well, if I'm not, I won't be. And there's a link. There's a historical link. So forgive my botany. There's a historical link between the Igbos and us. Yeah. There's a story. We've always been drawn to each other, the Yorubas and the Igbos, or Ife people and Igbos.
I don't know how, but because I've been with my husband since I was 17 anyway, so you can imagine how long ago. Most of it, the most important thing my family was interested to know is whether they had Usu. And I say, you people don't have it. It's not in your tradition. I'm sure you must have heard about Usu.
I've heard of it, yes.
Yes, they were very, very keen amongst every other thing to make sure that the two people don't have it. So that was by the way, but they did every other thing they had to do. Not that they agree, but they have to, because when love is drawn, there's nothing you can do. There are two things I want to know. I want to state, a lot of my Yoruba friends, whenever they are doing the traditional, what I think is the traditional wedding, because for we Igbos, that traditional marriage that the family come together is more important than the white wedding for us. If you haven't done it, you are not married, as long as the Igbos are concerned, no matter how many children or how big your white wedding was. But most of my Yoruba friends, I see when they are doing the traditional marriage, I see it's a traditional marriage, they call it engagement. And I keep arguing with them. I say, before the white man came to make you feel that the white marriage is the marriage, doesn't Yoruba people get married? Why do you keep calling your traditional marriage engagement?
Let me answer that very quickly. First of all, as far thank you so much for the additional information. The first thing is that with us Yoruba, what is the marriage is once a man penetrates you, once a man goes in between your legs, you are married. We just carry your bag and go and give you to the man. That is the marriage for us Orthodox. So in fact, thank you for raising that, because we have something spiritually that we used to use routinely, but we use sparingly now, which is to lock the vagina of the female. We also have what they use nowadays, which is a man to penetrate and not be able to get out. I'm sure you've heard of that before. But yes.
What did they call it? I don't know.
Magun, we call it magun.
Yeah, magun, yes.
We call it magun. So let me say that I want to also thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you see, what we Yorubas do is to prevent that love from developing. We keep emotion away. We don't allow a female and male to be drawn. We know it's nature. So before they get drawn, yes, we would have intervened. You see, we will have intervened. But nowadays, yes, there are 2 or 3 Mia's mothers who are Yoruba, married to Fulani. They're Yoruba. Now, at the end of the day, the most important thing is that the rules of the ruler is to keep the two apart. They don't see each other. They don't choose each other. So there is no I love you there. You see, but nowadays, they do come close. And so nature takes its place. And then, yes, I know that we Yorubas always say that they will not just marry anybody. They are very
no, we don't. We do. We up to now. Even if you meet somebody here, you have to send people. Yes. I remember my sister in America, the daughter met this Anambra man. We still have to send people back home to go and investigate the family.
Yes.
We check, is there a mad person in the family? Is there anybody that's still in their family? I think for me, I've been the only person in my family, both sides, that ever married even outside our state. Let alone to marry a Yoruba person. I've been there, and it took years, because for 6 years they've known him and all that. We are young and all, and It kept on and on. Igbo people are very, very careful when it comes
Yes,
to marriage.
and we call it alarino. We call it
and we don't care
alarino.
how many children you've had with the person. That
Yes.
marriage is what makes marriage for us. That family getting to know each other
Yes.
and all that.
Yes.
The white
Yes.
marriage doesn't mean anything to us. It's just a ceremony.
Yes. I mean, thank you. You see, the one you call investigation, we do spiritual and physical. We have alarino, but the alarino with us is a go-between when we already know it's going to happen. Now, in terms of the marriages that take place, I see many people, they go to Hall in Peckham and they're seeing all these people, and that is not, it is not, they are not doing anything like what you normally do. Even the worst thing nowadays, we always have exchange of gifts. Now, the list of gifts that must be exchanged, they are standard lists. Nowadays,
yeah, we do have lists. Yes,
they will put Bible in it. We don't put Bible in ours. No, but they will put Bible because normally when you put all those items together, the bride to be will be asked to go and pick one. Now, nowadays, they go and pick the Bible. And when the marriage starts going wrong, they start making noise because they rejected everything that is ancestral. Yoruba, Atare, and so on. They reject it. The other thing is that all those people you will hear doing a kalema or they are dancing, they are all strangers. They're no blood. And the bride and the groom, they don't quite know the families of each other. So
like when I got married,
yes,
because my dad is the last born in his family, so it's my dad's senior brother that gave me out.
Yes,
you see, and that rules. Even though we live here, we have to go home down to that rules. When it comes to marriage, a very, very strong rule for my people. It's not about the dancing or anything. A very, very strong rule.
Exactly. Even now, you see their breast is almost coming out of the whatever dress they are wearing. You know, but for the sake of the others listening to us, you see, for the egos, if I dare say so, in fact, the whole of Nigeria, the different groups, family is where everything starts. Very, very, very important. The family rules. The head of the family is a ruler. He's a ruler.
Regardless of money.
That's it. He's a ruler. Say jump, you jump. Sit, you sit. No more, no more. He's a ruler.
And there's something else I want to point out. You did mention about the man having several wives. In those days, the men can afford their wives. These days, the men they cannot even afford the one wife they have. They live off the woman. So a lot of them, like in this London, they live off the woman. They come here, once they can make up to 2,000, they are home, spending it with younger, come back and live off the woman here. So how can a man like that have many wives? As opposed to those days when men were really in charge of their home financially.
But let me put it this way. Don't forget, in those days, they didn't have television. They didn't want Pajero and all of that. They didn't want. Now, but you see, you're right. In fact, many, many years ago, one of the issues we had to deal with in England was that in those days, the men would come first. Then they will go and send for some woman to come and join them. And the woman would be working round the clock. They will be studying. You see, they'll be studying. The woman will be fending, reversal of roles. And then when the man is qualified and the two of them go home, then the man wants to take a second wife. Of course, the whole house will break loose. Because in fairness, the woman has worked. You know, the circumstances. One, the fact that males and females do choose each other now. The worst thing nowadays, which I'm sure you may also identify with, I'm so sorry to say so, in the past, a woman who has been slept with before is a societal reject. You know, the man didn't want her. Nowadays, 3, 4, 5 men, they've slept with this woman. And then one man will go and put a white gown on him, on her, and say, yeah, they are dancing. 3, 4 men, they've been trying the woman out. And then they didn't want her. One, no, they didn't want her. They didn't want her. Then one man will just pick her up and they'll go and do big wedding. It's spiritually, we have problems with that. Because that woman, if 5 men had slept with her before marriage, she has had 5 husbands before that man. That's the 6th one. And we say, meaning the person is wiser. The more, it may sound strange, the more sexual contact females have with men, the wiser they are as far as the man is concerned. So, thank you for that information. Yes, you are very right. Nowadays, we are faced with a situation where, I went to Malaysia. I was so surprised. The number, the children born to Yoruba men by Malaysians. I just didn't know what to do, And there we go. And those Malaysian women, they've never been to anywhere near Africa. Talk of Nigeria, talk of.
So the men too are reckless. The men too are reckless as well.
They are reckless.
Just the women. Because
yes. Go ahead.
In those days, if for Igbos, if you have only one wife, that means you're a poor man.
Exactly.
It's the way you show your wealth, many wives. And even if that one wife is taken from somebody or they will go back to their parent, you will do everything to bring that woman, because it's a disgrace to you. But now men don't care. A woman can come and go. They don't see it as a shame to them.
Exactly.
And it's not just the women. Everybody is reckless. A man doesn't meet his kids all over before, but now everybody is reckless.
Well, the other thing I must mention is that husband and wife, you see, a man who is able to effectively manage more than one woman will be a good leader.
Mm-hmm.
So a man who effectively can manage 6 will be a damn good leader. That's why recently, I'm sure, Mrs. Beyoku, there was a clip of one member of the House of Reps who took his 4 wives to the federal house to prove that he is not just a strong man on the floor, on the house, that he brought all the 4 wives to show the others, to say, you people with one, you can't deliver. So for those of you who are listening, the capacity to keep more than one woman happy is evidence of a good leader. But a man who cannot even cope with one woman, one woman, you invite him to come, he'll be doing like a sissy. He can't think on his feet. Yes? And the mother has wasted her life with sort of that kind of a man. We have to protect the men to be proper men. Nowadays, most of them are women. Women. They, as Mrs. Beyoku said, they're always looking for strong women, added value. They call them added value. They are looking for, you will see somebody who cannot read or write, will go and marry a graduate. That relationship can last. So these are issues. Family is very important. Our spirituality is very important. Let me say, for instance, that the first set of ancestors, meaning they had no Orisha. They didn't have any Orisha. If you are hearing of Orisha, Oduduwa was not after any Orisha, Obatala was not after any Orisha, Oshun had no Orisha. Now, those that we have made Orisha are those who you can call our heroes and counterpart. So, for instance, Oduduwa, that is our progenitor. No, there's nobody who's got a shrine for him. Nobody. And the only festival, the only way we celebrate him is in September, the Oni of Ife, that is the person who is occupying the throne of our progenitor. He has to be in seclusion for 7 days, no light, moonsy daylight. And all he will be doing is praying. And he comes out after the 7th day and he goes to the, what is called a shrine, but to the grave of his own ancestor. And on his way is actually blessing, additional blessing. So there's no Oduduwa to feed. Now, as far as Oshun is concerned, Oshun herself never, people, again, the Orthodox, we know that Oshun was a herbalist. That's why we say Sheleru Agbo, Agbara Agbo, Loshun. Sorry, herbalist. She was with herbs. The word herbalism, they use it to cover a far priest. No, they are not herbalists. No, but Oshun was a herbalist, leaves, herbs, will deal with his leaves. And also she could hear, she could see. In Nigeria or Yoruba land, you see Oshun people, the real one, they can hear the voice and they can deliver messages without anything. Although we have all the things we used to consult, they came afterwards. So some of us who are Orthodox, we are back to what the ancestors of those that we are clear mediums. We are clear mediums. We don't rely on, call it instruments, but although there are particular instruments that if we choose
I don't think the Oni is Orthodox anymore.
Oni, so, yeah. Thank you for listening.
He's left his first wife to marry the second one. He should have kept 2 of them.
Let me comment on that. The first thing is that in terms of his life, he has had the following wives. The first one was the one who is the mother of his only child, and that's about 26, 27 now. He's had a child of that age, a daughter. She's not the one who runs around. That woman still is the wife, although not in the palace, because in fact, until this young lady had a child, that was the only child. Now, the in between, there is still the legally married wife who unfortunately did not have any children, but she still, yes, they were married for 8. That was the only one he legally, they went to registry, white wedding, white dress, is suited. That's the one. And he actually married in the sort of Western way, and he has not divorced. The woman is still there. Then, of course, the lady who came in, again, you need to understand, once somebody has become an Oba is a king, a woman is actually given as a gift. So they don't marry them. There is they're just given as gifts.
Okay.
They don't, Oba don't, you give, that's why Allah has got so many. My Baba, Allah has got many, because they keep, you see, once you're an Oba, that's one thing, or you are a royal chief, people give you gifts of wives. Now, the young lady, of course, we all know at some point he's going to marry more.
He's already married more. There's a rumor, there's another one.
Let me tell you one thing. We have a saying, any binilanjo. That means whoever gave birth to you, you have to be like the person. Oduduwa. Record-wise, it suggests that he had about 200 plus wives. He had all those wives. So because the word wife isn't about you have to go and do the business. No. And also you talked about the Oni. Anybody who becomes an Oni, he will actually have to take a new first Olori. And that Olori is referred to as a spirit Olori. That's one of the favorite wives of the progenitor. So that is his first wife. All others they become subordinates. Yeyemolu, in fact, he's repaired the place properly. So he has that wife as well. And so he can never be without a wife. And that wife will bring more. Yeyemolu, in fact, they do have her festival. Or this current Oni has done it very well. The last Oni had many wives, before. So at the end of the day, it's not possible for a Yoruba man to stick. It's not possible to stick to one woman. But I have to say, I've come across those who, if a woman proves to be one they can really confide in, that is the most important. It's not about sex. If it's the woman is somebody they can really confide in and pour their heart out and cry onto her shoulder, and that one, I do mean constructively mother, is more of shoulders to cry upon and allow him to be himself. It won't happen. I've seen it. It would happen. I've even seen where a second wife given to the man, he refused. Third wife given, he refused. See,
That's my father-in-law.
He refused.
He's a man of one wife, very handsome man.
But you see, the woman, with the woman must have been somebody he could pour his heart out to, and will really take care of him. What we found out with Yoruba men is that it is when they need that pouring out of their hearts to somebody that they just wander off. They wander off. Instead of actually basically doing, you have talking therapy now. You have some men can really just pick up a phone and talk to somebody. They don't know how to talk to people when they have real problems. I've got 3 sets of new men's only groups, and I'm having serious challenges trying to get them to even talk to each other. See, so it is actually been there, really. That is what is more important. And most women, unfortunately, don't understand that with this group of men, you have to see yourself as second priority. Then no matter what, the man will answer. So any more questions? I hope I have. Thank you, Mrs. Bayoku, delighted. Your name is one popular historic name.
Yeah. I think there is only one Bayoku.
Only one, yes, not 2.
The other
Not
one
2.
is Biobaku.
Yes, that's right, Biobaku too, yes. One. Any more questions for me? Yannick?
Yeah, hello?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if this is true or is false. Is it true that the Oni or the Oba before is buried, that's if one dies, they have to bury the person with somebody like a notable in the palace? And if that's true, what's your take on that?
Well, historically, that was our way. Historically, when an Oba When an Oba means somebody who rules over everything.
Yes.
Oba lórí ohun gbogbo. So when an Oba passed on, we provide the Oba with everything, slave and the wife as well.
Including a
Slave,
maid.
wife, all the things he used to have. So it's as if he would be setting up a kingdom. That was the way. But gradually, we began to replace that because again, the Western laws came. So if you suddenly go and kidnap somebody's child for the ritual, of course, there will be problems. So gradually, that seems to be the case. In the past, you wouldn't even have access to where they were buried, but the immediate past Oni, in fact, it's a whole room. You will see his tomb, all nicely decorated, which is away from what we used to do. The other ones are the palace of the Oni. Most of them are in that palace. We always have a particular place where they have to be laid to rest, because when it's by lineage, so when their lineage has the turn to become Oba, that the particular site is very important for spiritual reconnection. So, but no, we don't. I mean, I have personally, part of me comes from a part of Yoruba land where it is something is still done. In fact, in 2008, I mounted a massive campaign when my late Kabiyesi passed on, because this is Ijebu Aremo. I don't mind talking about it because I give lots and lots and lots. I spent a lot of money to campaign, and we are now on the verge of getting a bill to become law. What happens is that when the Oba passed on, very few people will have access, but then they will put a rope to the neck, and the body will, it's a spiritual practice. They will have to drag the Oba around the whole, not on there's something they used to wrap it, goes all the way, then they will go and put it up somewhere, and they can't remove the head, but there's a particular practice, and until the head comes up on its own, then the rest of the body and what needed to be done. But that's, I'm free to express that without going too much into details, but I really mounted a big campaign. I mounted a big campaign single-handedly, spent a heck of a lot of money to find his body, because spiritually, I was able to know where. Again, let me be very direct. For 3 months, I practically lived with this, with my late Kabiyesi, although he was deceased. But he was able to take me to here, this is here, this is there, this is over here, this is over there. It wasn't easy. But I just became a vehicle through which he was actually doing what needed to be done. And that's why I've been able to advance more information that I was able to than anybody could. And right now in Ogun State, there's a bill which is hopefully going to be passed to law, but there'll be bits and pieces of it which will be to address some of the spiritual practices that we used to have, but which realistically will be breach of the human rights of people who are Christians, or who are still Yorubas like us, or who are Muslims who are still Yoruba. And many people will talk about Yoruba traditional practice. There's nothing in our divine laws which says you can't be a Christian, which says the Yoruba cannot be a Christian. Nothing. There's nothing which says the Yoruba cannot be a Muslim. but in fact, there's one Oduifa. If that Odufa, that is, Odu means revelation. Ifa means the spirit of truth. So when divination is done and that Odu comes out, we will tell the person to go and buy the mat and go and pray. And go and pray in Islamic way because we cross path. There's also one Odufa which talks about a child will be born by akriboto is the word in Yoruba, but it means somebody without any hole down below. And that child will be. So we have got this information documented by Orunmila. So there's nothing which says we can't be this religion or that religion. There's nothing. But obviously nowadays, in order to preserve us, because the more open we are, the other faiths are basically wanting to destroy our own identity. That's the way, because obviously I don't know enough about the Bible, but when people have to name themselves after somebody in the Bible, when we have our own naming system, it becomes a conflict. When somebody, I mean, have a number of Yorubas, they become Abdul Latif, Lalil. They just, have you come across them, Mrs. Yoko? They've lost both their first name and their last name to this thing. So the answer to your question is, yes, we still have certain customary rituals, which is necessary because we have to connect. First of all, let me say, a king in our Yoruba rules doesn't die. So when somebody becomes Oba, there are rituals we do to place that person on the throne, to connect that person with the spirit of those before, or the spirit of the initial owner of the throne. So when that person is said to have departed, and we've got the physical, we have to remove our, we have to remove the throne from him. We have to separate him from the throne. So there are rituals we do to separate him, but this is where my argument comes in, because he goes as a prince, because the king never dies. So that's my argument, that look, once we remove the throne from him, you know, it's not, it wasn't going, it wouldn't be going as a king. It's going as a prince. He becomes who he was, because somebody else becomes him. So in certain parts, we still do it. In certain parts of, when I was doing my campaigning, I came across a situation where, and this is real, they have to use a pregnant female to determine the suitability of the monarch who wants to come onto the throne. So that's really, I mean, I think the norm is the child, the unborn child will be put on the head of the candidate. If the child screams, then the candidate is dead. It proves that he's not meant to be on the throne. But if the child dies, sadly, I mean, I sound awful, that means the candidate is eligible. But all of that, you know, even as I'm talking, I'm sort of shivering, you know, even talking about it, but there we are. I mean, but that's not easy. Again, you ask the question, where do they get this sort of, I mean, at the end of the day, we always have something called Oro, which is everybody, you know, people are supposed to stay in their homes. Usually tends to be a stranger. Really.
Does Euro still happen these days?
Oh yes, we still have Oro. We use Oro to combat evil. With the COVID, we had a few in Ife and in other parts. For instance, Ososa, many parts of Yoruba land still have Oro.
And because people have been killed with this Oro.
You see, Ikorodu, you see, nowadays, before they have the Oro, unlike before, it was solely the responsibility of the king, but nowadays they have to get permit from the local government. And that is because they will be required to make a series of announcements and so on and so forth. They do make announcements, but unfortunately, strangers or some people
Well,
don't hear
victims,
about
yeah.
it. And once they disappear, they disappear.
Yeah, I know this man, he didn't right by his door. He couldn't pay rent in Lagos, so he came to live in a Kurudu, a Calabar man. Then he was
Yes.
coming back from work. He was even knocking at the door. The family just can't open, and they took him, and that was it.
Yes, I mean, once the, I have to put my hand up and say I'm one of those really, really actively looking at how this thing can be better managed, But for instance, there's a part of Remo where when it had to be done, what we did was, it was, let me use Peckham as an example. I hope most people know Peckham. There's somewhere like Hyde Park in Peckham, huge place that was built, near on the High Street Peckham. That space, we got a space like that and blocked it all off so that what had to be done was restricted to only those places and not outside. We restricted it. Do you understand? So that
those parts of this thing it's not necessary anymore on human rights issues, because that culture, everybody has it.
Yes.
Like there was a time, even with the Igbos, that if somebody dies, especially Bendalibo area, they will bury the person with their slave.
Yes.
Life.
Yes.
But those things, you find out it's not necessary. It doesn't really do anybody any good.
In fact, the problem we have nowadays with us Yoruba is that most kings are saying they want to be buried in line with their own religion. And a number of our kings now, a number are Christians, a number are Muslims. I remember I have a Brazilian background. There was a group of Brazilians from Bahia, to be precise. They saved money. I think they must have taken them 6 or so years to save money. They were hoping to go to Nigeria to go and see what was going on. So they saved the money. And when they got, I'm sure many of us know that Brazil, they are very, very culturally focused. So many of them are Orisha people. So when they arrived in Nigeria, they started going to visit. Then they went to visit one particular Oba. And they did, this, when I started, I said few words. They did that. They did libation and so on and so forth. They were dancing, they did all of that. That Oba was looking at them. But when the Oba was going to respond, can you guess what he did? He just brought out the Bible.
Yes.
And started reading the Bible to them. One of them was physically sick. And she just became unwell. And she had to return. Half of them returned. They could not understand it. He started to read the Bible to them. So
because the Bible does not allow, it's against all this killing and all that. I think I used to have a they said a great grandmother, so that she was very wealthy. And if she's not happy with any of her slaves, she will just sell them to where she will tell them, I want to prove that that person is killed. I want a part of the body. That is how great they saw her to be.
Yes. And it's interesting. You are saying that majority of our females were at the forefront of slavery. They were slave traders. They were not, they just brought them from the hinterland and they sold them. And some of them they went all the way with the slaves to Brazil to Salvador, and they are going backwards and forward. I have a trunk box of information. They were going backwards and forward with the slaves. So some of them, my own great-grandfather, some of those who were used the word trafficked there, when it was the rule that when they had the first and second child, he was the one who would take those two first and second, bring them back to Yoruba land, so that a new life, just in case. And it's interesting you are also noticing it, because most people will say, oh, they come and raid everywhere, and they come and do this. Now, at the end of the day, again, we will say, maybe they went to raid the Igbos, maybe, because we say, oh, they don't have Oba, they have elders, but the elders were just as powerful, you see. But we've been, even the story of Osoyin shows we've been selling slaves before the white man came.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Orunmila went to the market, before he got to the market, he was told that he will find a slave that would have deformity, and that is the slave that he would buy. And Orunmila went and bought the slave. And then the story said that all of the friends that they went to the market with, the friend will say, Orunmila, what do you want to do with this? This thing is not going to be of any use to you. And apparently he had been told spiritually that that's the slave he should buy. And he bought that one. And he said, as soon as he paid for the slave suddenly was running all the way home. And he discovered that the slave was able to assist him with a lot more than the friends imagined. So that's way, way before white man. No white man in Orunmila days. So
yeah, but then we were not treating our slaves unjustly.
Sorry?
We were not treating our
No.
slaves unjustly. The
No.
slaves suddenly become members of the family. Like in my family now, the elders in the family now that we see as the head, they came as slaves.
We have them too.
Which my father told me about, you see. So the slaves could, mingle with the family and become part of the family, unlike how they've treated slaves in America and all that. That was the difference.
Well, I'm delighted you are echoing that, because when I was young, I had matriarchs in my family who were major slave traders. They were even dealing in gold. And yes, I recall one in particular who bought a slave whose mouth, they pierced through the mouth. That one was working in the sugarcane plantation. I recall that slave very well. And she bought him, and I used to ask, what's wrong with Baba's mouth? And she told, she traded in slaves. And as you said, they were part and parcel. In fact, I remember there was some issue about landed property, and some part of my paternal family were saying they shouldn't give these people because they are slaves. And I said, well, excuse me, where are we going to take them? They're bearing names. And said, no, they're slaves, they came something like it. And I said, look, please, let's stop this nonsense. These people, I said, these people, whether they are slaves or they are not, do they know anywhere else? They don't know anywhere else. They belong here. So even if it's 1/3 of everything, they should get. And that was how I was able to negotiate, to say, look, you can't not give these people part of this asset. It doesn't make sense, So these are realities. But like you said, they weren't ill-treating them.
Yes.
But when they sold them, they were just, as I said, Iwofa. That's the word we call them. They come out and do farming, they want to do
the thing is that every generation they will tell you, because I remember my father telling us. Yes. So a few years ago, about 3 years ago or 4, we were doing something in the family and went home. And this man came in and sat down, and my brother, my own immediate general, told him to get up and go, and that he doesn't come from here. And I was really angry with my brother. And I said, no, you can't do that. Because even though they tell you that if you, I don't know why parents had to tell each child, you know, but you can't do that. And none of us have ever disrespected them or this man now, except my brother doing that, which I was very much against him doing that, you know. So that's the difference between how slaves were treated in the West and home, even though we had them before.
But you see, at the end of the day, the story still continues.
Yes,
So,
that's the bad thing. Yeah, it continues.
They will come from the slave, you know, my father bought and they bought and they bought, you know. But I think in terms of rulers and rules, there were rules for the slaves. There were rules, you know. And those rules, there are certain things I remember looking at the will of my great-great-grandmother and what she had to say about the slaves she had, you know. The particular one she actually made her read gave certain things to. So they went, there's something called repercussion. We call it esan, that's the repercussion. That whatever you do, it will come back to you. And that goes to the character. If you send character good message, you'll get goodness. You know, and if you send character bad message, you'll get the same. So a song, they used in my family, we used to buy a song. Well, any be more koma shake. Meaning if you're somebody with your own children, don't treat anybody badly. But nowadays, the whole thing, you will see more of people kidnapping. We used to they used to kidnap children. They used to kidnap adults, old people before. And now there's a lot of kidnapping going on. And what are they doing with the kidnapping? They're using, you know, some of the parts of the body being sold here and there. It sounds so horrific, you know. And in the past, you know, the Efiks, the Igbos, the Yorubas, anybody, we were all happily living together. You know, we didn't actually, I'm not saying we didn't have difficulty, but nowadays we're just getting by, you know. So any more questions? I hope I answered that question about the rituals. Yes, that is it.
Thank you, Sister ERELU. I'm both excited and I don't know if I should be crying of how much of a slave I am. So there is so much from today that I think could be explored much further than the 2 hours that we've kind of tried to earmark this for. You touched on things such as J, money and health, which I was hoping, or from a different time we can expand on. You also talked about some of the, I guess, circumstances around naming during birth, which I'm also hoping we can explore looking further down the line. And one question I did want to ask was with regards to marrying foreigners, how that came about before we go, and what the reasons for were behind it.
I don't know whether you've got headphones, but I couldn't quite catch what you said. Can you repeat that?
Just about foreigners, marrying foreigners.
Foreigners, oh, foreigners, yes, foreigners. Well, in those days, even now, in those days, for instance, let me use Lagos as an example. We have, before Lagos became as big as it is now, Lagos was mainly Boko Aguda and Isaliko, just two islands, just separated by Osa, meaning the sea. Now, the people of Popo Aguda, they were those who were slave traders who came back to settle in Lagos, and they brought back their money. They bought land, or before they went, because they had to take slaves through Lagos, they had land, so that when they actually transported the slaves from the interland, where no white man would just go there. In those days, we were quite powerful, so they would rely on friendship to bring those people to Lagos. Lagos was where most of them were transported from. So that side of what I would say, both sides dealt with slaves, but one was where those who were going backwards and forwards settled. So majority of them nowadays, they say they are Afro-Brazilians, but majority of them were involved in slave trade. So that side, even that side will not marry those on the other side. So A and B, they wouldn't marry each other. Even in terms of roads, even in some, there's Bangoshe, there's Karena, there's Sheteolu. These are roads. Even they wouldn't want to cross to another road. They will look, they'll say, you can't find anybody on this road. You can't, the whole of this place, because everywhere we were in compounds. It wasn't sort of 3-4 bedroom places. No. We had compounds, Agbole. So we know everybody's Agbole. So they say in the whole of that Agbole, all these Agboles in this area, you can't get one. So the word foreigner even included that. A foreign person, Ajoji, because they believe it's the relationship would last longer. The relationship is supposed to be with two families, and it's supposed to be of benefit. The union of two young people supposed to be of benefit to the two families. So if they don't link up with those they know, their background, it's unlikely to be successful. And that's how the area became more friendly and cozy, and people, then there was quality friendship and people work together. Nowadays, that's no longer there. So that's what I mean by foreigners. Come to talk about somebody who is not, even now they talk about who is Omeko, who is not Omeko, who is a real Lagosian. And talking about foreigners in, I don't know if Mrs. Beyoku, maybe, I'm sure you'll have the same. Nowadays, in many parts of Nigeria, you have 3 birth certificates. One is the indigenous one is local government one is state government. When I was born, I only had one because that time the monarchs were in charge. But nowadays, if you want to go to university in certain parts of the country, if you don't have indigenous certificates, in some areas you pay higher fee because you are not. First of all, you won't be one of the first to be given a place in the university because you're not an indigenous, and you won't be able to produce your indigenous certificates. You may be able to provide a state birth certificate, born in the same area, but one person has got indigenous. You haven't got indigenous, but you were born in the same state. Everybody can have that birth certificate for the state, but the indigenous certificate, no. Even for elections nowadays, if you're interested in studying for election in a particular area, if you've got your indigenous birth certificate in particular area, and maybe there's a position for councillor or House of Assembly, and you got state birth certificate and you don't have indigent, you're not an indigent. You are less of a priority. So the word foreigner means somebody who is not a native, or connected in any way. That's a foreigner. It doesn't necessarily mean, mind you, there were people who married, let me use the word Europeans, in those days too. There were those who married them. It's not, but my God, it was frowned upon. They used to call them Ashawo. They called them
Of course, yeah.
the daughter is a prostitute.
Anybody, yeah, that was the thing. Anybody with a white man is a prostitute. That is it. You feel sorry for them.
Yes.
That's just the Nigeria. It means that the person is so desperate, he must be poor, and just after money. That's the way they say it.
Many ran away with the white man because they used to. If I have known instances where they try to kill the woman, the girl, marrying a prostitute, becoming a prostitute, disgracing the whole family. So even now, even when you go back with mixed with something like that, they are still kind of thinking, oh, but it's not as bad, it's not as bad. So, that is what foreigner means, somebody who is not within the the proximity of relationship, inter-community relationship,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Because it's very important to be able to have born in the same area, grew up in the same area. These are items that facilitate compatibility. And when the family wants to intervene, if there are problems, makes that easier because they've known each other for a long time.
I like that connection of words, facilitate compatibility.
Yeah.
It sticks with me. I have one last question. I know I've had a million one at you, and a thank you to kind of offer. Firstly, with regards to, you post on some of our WhatsApp chats, newspaper articles. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, I know in the UK, especially with tabloids, reading them and taking and absorbing the information that is on there is often said to take with a pinch of salt. And I'm just wondering what the credibility of some of those papers are and how much of it we should take in when reading them, not being there on the ground to know.
Well, the first thing I say is that any information that comes onto that platform, it is to, my intention is to expose you to what is going on. None of it is untrue, whether it's a case of kidnapping or a case of a case of allegations of malpractices. I've posted front page newspapers. I get all the newspapers of Nigeria every day. I don't often bombard you with it, but I pick certain things that the reason why I post them there is because I have a feeling that you are looking at the whole of Africa. And I think most people don't know enough about the country called Nigeria. They think they do. They don't understand our problem. Many don't understand that from the time we are supposed to have had independence since 1960, we've never had peace.
Yes.
You see, many don't understand that we really don't, we haven't gelled. I say to people, there is not one person you can call in Nigeria.
Yes.
There's no Nigeria.
So what do you stand for?
Sorry?
What do you stand for? Do you think we should separate?
Well, personally, myself, I don't see quality understanding of any system of government we are going to use. Therefore, if it is better for everybody to go back to their native way.
Good. That's the only way we can have peace.
Yes.
People like me say no because of the intermarriage. No, no, no. It's not because I have a child that people should die. There's no peace.
You know, there was,
No
I
peace.
went to Mbese area some years back. They have this ceremony for people who are 80 years old. And I was so amazed that they were paying community tax in that area. They were paying, and when they become 80, they don't pay it anymore. You know, when you look at, you know, that we have not been able to maximize the relationships we have between ourselves. For instance, this is it. You've seen bits about these cows. A lot of these cows, that the cows have been creating problem. These cows, the reason why they've been creating problem is that open grazing seems to be where some people believe it should happen, but that's actually destroying farm life. But then you ask a question, why should somebody leave their farm without fencing it? Well, we've always had farms like that. We never used to fence off our farms. Oh, a lot of the other thing that's happened is this. This is about slavery. I want you to listen to this. We've got this Fulanis. They are the herdsmen. They are the ones who know how to look after cattle. Now, a lot of Yorubas have gone into the business. They bought the cows. They will give the cows to these people to be helping them to rear. Now, and I'm not saying theory. There's an area of Ife where it was decided to document all the owners of the cows and everything. Now, at the end of the day, unfortunately, it is the Yorubas themselves who have employed most of these cattle rearers. They've employed them, but they haven't built any ranch.
Yeah.
They haven't. So these people, they just run around with their cattle. So I've always said, if you want this thing to end, all of you carry your cows from these people. They'll tell me that the cow won't have any breeds. A lot of those cattle rearers, they cannot afford them. They are bought. And you know, for instance, Lagos alone is 6,000 cows they slaughter every day. A lot of these cows, they cannot even get on the trucks. Some of those children, that's another thing, young children roaming around the street with all these cattle, you know. Now, why am I saying that? It's always been a way of, in the past, we didn't have this problem because business opportunity didn't come up with cattle. It didn't come up for the Yorubas. So they are also breeding and selling. In the past, they would just put the cattle on the truck and they were not roaming the street. They were not all over the place. So what I'm saying is that a lot of what you're saying is about, one, culture conflict, about, I would say, economic crisis. I would say, in my view, intolerance. But that's one. The other bit is that for many, many years, which is why I put some of the Igbo things, the issue of equality of opportunity has always been a problem in Nigeria. Whenever there's time to put up a new president, the Yoruba and somebody, they will gang up, they will keep one part out. When it's another time, they will gang up, they'll keep it. You know what? The reason is that in Nigeria, your tribe is always important when you stand for election. They are coming for, they're calling election now. They'll say one is from the north, which is Agusa. Then the Yoruba will come up. Then they will say they don't want Igbo to be president or they want Igbo to be vice president. It's always tribal. I put those things on their platform for you. So you know that you cannot be talking about one Africa when we in Nigeria, which one Africa? There's nothing like that.
If they don't share that country, I'm telling you, the next 10 years, we are going to be like Afghanistan. That is the idea. You remember I told you that if Nigeria is still around in the next 10 years, we are going to be like Afghanistan. Unless everybody stands up and let's share that country, everybody goes their way. 10 years
But,
time, you remember I told you this will be Afghanistan.
but you see,
That's the idea.
initially there was Eastern region. They were doing their own thing. There was Western region. They were doing their own thing. There was Northern region. They were doing their own thing. Then all of a sudden, they started creating states. So we have to go back. We have two options. Option one, which I think is going to be the only way now because things are so bad. And that is let everybody go back to their tent for now.
Thank you.
You see, Igbo, go back to your tent. Yoruba, go back. Hausa, go back. Efik, go back. Ogoni, go back. All of this, go back. But
I've not renewed my passport, and I plan not to go to Nigeria again unless that country is shared.
Right now, it is so dangerous, in fact, to go to Nigeria. So dangerous. The kidnapping is serious. You know, since we had independence, you people talking about one Africa, we have to speak the same language. We have never been able to get 365 days of uninterrupted electricity. We can't. The hospitals that the white man built are the state hospitals. All the other hospitals, they are private hospitals. So how can people have time to be talking about one Africa when we want to, and then when we say we want to separate? Yani, some people will be saying, oh, we don't want to hear separate. Please, you people have to hear we are separating.
All of them going home are staying in Lagos. My friend called me this evening. Oh, I'm in Lagos. Home is. I said, why don't you? She's Igbo. I said, why don't you go to the village? Why don't you travel to Borno? You say, no. I'm staying in Lagos. Is that going home?
I know.
Going to Lagos.
Just mindful of time. Okay, I come from southern Cameroon, and you both know previously it's a Nigerian state. So when we're talking about separation, they've been fighting this since 1954, way before now. My father has gone to prison for it, can tell you guys a lot of story about fighting for separation. And so when we look at this and you say, well, I accept that we need to be sovereign, but can we be sovereign as Alkebulans, the ancestral name for the land that we come from? And I think that's the position a lot of the people that I speak with tend to take.
But Yannick, you see, we people, my people never heard that Al-Kabulan you talk about. We don't know anything about Kabulan. So if we don't know anything about Kabulan, how can we become Kabulan?
But that's about raising awareness. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's the land that we come from, and that's our history. So with it being our history, if our starting point is Yoruba and that comes with problems, can we find a starting point that has less problems in our history? If we're looking back in our history to find where we are performing well as people collectively.
Look, Yannick, even those, can I tell you something? Years ago, I call them people of far West Africa, and that is the Africans from the Caribbean. Now, when they started marrying our people, they went to Nigeria. The problem, they even had to have their own organization to protect them.
Yeah, the women, yeah.
Yes. So at the end of the day, it's not like Ghana. Now, the point I'm making is that unfortunately, the delay for us to go and exist on our own has made us people who are, we don't want no foreigners. We threw out the Ghanaians. We threw out South Africa. We just are not tolerant anymore because, look, in Lagos now, we're always fighting. They say Lagos is no man's land. They'll say since when? They'll say the Igbos have taken over Olashopo, ERELU, the Alaba, they've taken over. I say, who sold the land to them? Who sold the land to them? So what I'm saying is that the problem we have in Nigeria, it needs a Kabulan to get involved because we've been through too much pain to even want to welcome anybody.
But you know, Biafra has been there as a country before the white man came to form Nigeria.
Well, yes, we got us, but recently Ninas is talking about no. There are some people there, no, they're irrelevant. Oh, hey.
Those are the people who book people.
You
People,
know
they are the
something?
problem we have in they are book but no brain.
Exactly. You see, at the end of the day, we need to go back to Al-Kabulan.
Brainless people.
We need to go back to native.
Mm-hmm.
Native. When we go back to native and we have peace in our brain, that is when. Did you see if you know, excuse me, I recall years ago, it was somebody in my constituency that gave me a book to tell me how when all these Igbos were being killed and the women couldn't eat, that they took the babies, listen to this, they took the babies and started putting them on the plane, and they were putting some, they're putting name bands on them. And they took some of them to Belgium. I remember Belgium properly. But when they got to Belgium, they just removed their bandwrists and said nobody will remember their names. Excuse me, do you know how many of these children never came back?
Mm-hmm.
They said they'll bring them back. They never brought them back.
Do you know that the ones that were living abroad who came back at that time, as soon as they got out of plane, they knew they were Igbos, they shot them at the airports, all of them.
Wow.
So if people are living in England and think they are safe because they are not home and not getting involved in this thing, it could hit them. Yes. Did you know that? But people who lived in London, as soon as they arrived at the airport, they separated and shot all of them, the Igbos. You know, because one thing with Black people generally, we forget so much. And if you say things, they tell you you are aggressive, you don't forgive. Instead of people to keep saying everybody, but people feel they are safe. They are not the ones in the village, they are raping and kidnapping, so they keep quiet. It could hit anybody anytime.
But do you know how many, there was, I think, a couple of years back, they shot all these young Igbo boys.
Mm-hmm.
All of them.
Mm-hmm. But the ones that educated think that, oh, all these people protesting is this and that. I look at them.
So you see, Al-Kabulan, if you people want Africa to be one, nobody in Africa is coming to say, look, how can we settle this? All we want is let everybody have a sense of ownership of their ancestral land. We're not saying
Europe did the same. They have small countries within Europe.
Of course. Well, I think we're saying exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we're saying is have Yoruba sovereignty. Yoruba sovereignty begins in Africa. And so if you've got Yoruba sovereignty, you've got whatever else people want to identify when they have their sovereignty, then you have African sovereignty within that in itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But you see, listen, if there is conflict, do you know how many people have died in Nigeria? If there is conflict, where is this Al-Kabulan who's going to get involved in conflict?
I'm a child of conflict. I grew up with tear gas. I am at schools, in wars. I grew up running from one place to another. That's most of my childhood. So that's what I remember.
Same as myself. Take cover.
Well, listen, I only remember hearing the bomb blast and all of us are hiding under the bed during the Biafran War. So, but let me ask you, Al-Kabulan, how can we get organized to sort out this conflict? You know, because in Nigeria, you are talking about, do you know, even Republic of Benin, they are just still keeping quiet. There's a Gun and Yoruba. So all I'm saying to you is that Nigeria is at the moment on fire. Too many people dying, heads cut off, everything is a mess.
The elites are in denial. The elites are in denial.
Of course. So how this is really what can be a good thing come out of this session. How do we look at sovereignty and conflict resolution. Sovereignty and conflict resolution. Because what we are getting is the problem of is sovereignty. The Igbos they want to have their rules and have their rulers. The Hausa, they want the same. You know, the Boko Haram, the reason why the Boko Haram have been fighting is because they don't want no Western involvement.
They are not even Nigerians. These are people from Mauritius. Rhodesia, Chad.
Because they've come in to come and help.
They are not Nigerians because the Fulani is only 3%. And they brought all those their people from so that their percentage can be higher. So many people call Hausa self is not happy.
Yes. Yannick, you see, this whole thing is going to have a purpose. How can we have all this conflict going on? Is there any established body that helps resolve conflict?
No.
Too many people
not that I see. Not that I
exactly.
There's nothing to resolve than to share. Let people go according to their tribe.
Well, you know
we
something?
can come together in happiness. Before everybody was on their own, there wasn't any problem.
You see,
Before they called us Nigeria, all of us merged us together. Everybody was on their own.
What I mean is that let everybody come around and say, look, let everybody just go their way and set a date for us to just dissolve the whole thing. That's what we need. But you see, everybody, you know why there's a problem about dissolution? Too much debt. Nigeria is in debt. Is in debt.
And let them share it and give people percentage. The debt you borrowed, you're using it to build a railway in Niger. So why do you want a Yoruba man or Igbo man to pay out of that debt?
Exactly. And you know what? The state governors, they are still borrowing money. But it shouldn't disturb us from
separate.
Yes, we need to
because
agree
the collateral is like the rail. If you are not paying, the Chinese have signed maybe to run it for 50 years. They can run it for where they have the rail. We don't have the rail. They didn't build anything in our side.
I apologize for interrupting.
Yeah, the time is gone now.
We are after 8.
Yeah.
I do want us to continue this conversation, all of us in different formats. And Sister ERELU, there's so many parts of this that I think we can develop on. Are
their hands still up? No?
Sorry?
No.
No.
It's okay.
Yeah, so I really want to thank you.
Pleasure.
Touched on so much today, and I think and hope this is the beginning of some of these conversations as opposed to anything else, because whilst I don't think we've had the turnout today, I do know of a lot of different people that have an interest in this conversation and a very, very strong interest that some of whom were not able to be here today and that would want to be here to have this conversation going forward. And I don't think it's a close conversation to have one time either. In saying that too, I also want to thank, I guess, some of the invisible participants who are here in spirit but are not here in person. I think you mentioned Sister Amalia. Without her, you're not here and this doesn't happen. And without Zola Bantu, it doesn't happen either. So we thank both of them as well as others that are not here today. And thank you dearly and sincerely, Sister ERELU. It's been really, really, really awakening in certain ways and consolidating in others. I appreciate that for myself personally. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being a wonderful host, and delighted to have come to a comfortable conclusion as to where we take this from now on. So thank you for your time. And Mrs. Baku, delighted to meet you.
Thank you. And you too.
Continue this conversation. Wish you well, everybody. And thank you all for coming to listen to me.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Very informative. Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Bye.